two brothers found a power stone. One became the most powerful planeswalker in Magic's history. The other became a Phyrexian monster, and their war literally broke the world. This is the Brothers' War, the conflict between Urza and Mishra that changed everything, from Dominaria's climate to the fate of the multiverse itself. But here's what makes this story truly heartbreaking. They weren't always enemies. They were students, partners, even best friends who dreamed of unlocking the secrets of ancient technology together. Their transformation from loving brothers into apocalyptic warlords is a tragedy that spans decades and ends with one of them sacrificing everything to stop the other. Today, we're diving into the complete story of the Brothers' War, from two young artificers learning under their mentor to the moment Urza detonated a weapon so powerful it altered Dominaria's orbit. This is the foundational story of Magic the Gathering, and why even the greatest love can become the most terrible hate. If you're ready for this epic tragedy, hit that like button and subscribe for more Magic lore deep dives. Let me know in the comments which character story you want to see next. Let's dive in. The story begins with timing that shaped destiny. On the first day of the year 0 AR, Argivian Reckoning, Urza was born to nobility in the kingdom of Argive. On the final day of that same year, his younger brother Mishra entered the world. From birth, they were different halves of the same whole. Urza was methodical, brilliant, always thinking 3 steps ahead. Mishra was passionate, intuitive, with an almost supernatural understanding of how machines worked. Alone, each was talented. Together, they were unstoppable. When political tensions forced their father to secure their future, both boys were sent to apprentice under Tocasia, a renowned artificer and archaeologist. Her excavation site in the caves of Korlos was searching for remnants of the ancient Thran civilization, the lost empire whose technology had once dominated Dominaria. Under Tocasia's patient guidance, the brothers flourished. They learned the secrets of artifice, the mysteries of archaeology, and the weight of history. More importantly, they learned to work as partners. When they discovered an ancient Thran thopter in the ruins and managed to restore it to flight after millennia of silence, it represented everything beautiful about their bond. But those same runes held something that would poison their partnership for forever. Deep beneath the earth, in a chamber that had been sealed since the Thran Empire's fall, the brothers made the discovery that would define their lives: a massive power stone, glowing with energy that had burned unchanged for thousands of years, sat waiting for the both of them. Both brothers reached for it simultaneously. The stone exploded in their grasp, splitting cleanly in half as some ancient failsafe activated. Urza found himself holding the Might Stone, Mishra the Weak Stone. What neither understood was that this wasn't just a physical division, it was metaphysical. The halves yearned to be reunited, and through their connection to the stones, so did the brothers. But instead of drawing them together, that yearning twisted into something toxic. The brothers began competing obsessively, each trying to prove his stone was superior. Their friendly rivalry soured into bitter contests as the stone's influence grew stronger. They pushed their creations harder, took greater risks, ignored Tocasia's increasingly desperate attempts to mediate between the two of them. The end finally came during a heated argument about whose discoveries were more significant. Using their respective power stones, both brothers unleashed their mechanical creations in what started as a demonstration but then became a battle. The resulting explosion killed Tocasia instantly, their beloved mentor crushed by the very knowledge she taught them to wield. Mishra, overwhelmed by guilt and horror at what they had done, fled into the western desert. Urza, devastated but convinced his brother had chosen his path, returned to civilization. The Power Stone had finally been divided completely, but yet so had the brothers. The Falahi found Mishra dying in the desert, another victim of the wasteland's cruelty. They made him a slave, just another mouth to feed in their nomadic lifestyle, but the desert that broke his body forged his will. Strange dreams plagued his sleep, visions of worlds made of steel and oil, where flesh and metal merged into something greater. Everything changed when dragon engines attacked his captors. These ancient Thran war machines had wandered the desert for millennia, following long-dead commands. As warriors fell around him, Mishra reached out with his weak stone and felt something incredible. He could command them. The dragon that had come to kill became his weapon. The slave became the tribe's savior. Within months, Mishra had united the scattered Falahi under his banner, his growing fleet of controlled war machines making him the most powerful force in the western desert. Meanwhile, Urza chose a different path to power. His genius for artifice earned him recognition in Yodian society, where mechanical innovation was prized above almost everything else. His marriage to Kayla bin Krug wasn't just love, it was political, binding him to the kingdom's ruling family and giving him resources to pursue ever greater creations. For years they built their separate empires. Mishra ruled through charisma and strength, his dragon engines the symbol of his authority over the western tribes. Urza ascended through marriage and merit, creating wonders of artifice that made him invaluable to Yoshan nobility. Neither brother knew what the other had become. They might have lived their separate lives forever, but Terracer wasn't large enough for both their ambitions. The Peace Summit was supposed to end the tensions between the Falahi Confederation and the Yodian Empire. Instead, it lit the fuse that would burn down the world. When the brothers faced each other for the first time since Tocasia's death, the years collapsed. All their grief, rage, and mutual blame crystallized in that very moment. The hatred in their eyes made it clear that reconciliation was impossible. Worse, the Yodian leadership had never intended peace. The summit was a trap, designed to eliminate the Falahi command structure in one decisive strike. The attack came swiftly, catching the desert delegates off guard. Mishra barely escaped with his life, but he understood the message perfectly. This was war. His response shook the continent. Dragon engines descended on Krug like falling stars, the beautiful capital of Yodia consumed in a single night of fire and vengeance. The fall of Krug marked the official beginning of the Brothers' War, but both sides knew it was only the opening move. This wasn't a conflict that would be decided by human armies alone. Both brothers possessed the knowledge and resources to create mechanical forces beyond anything Dominaria had ever seen. Urza's sleek Avengers clashed with Mishra's brutal dragon engines across battlefields that stretched from coast to coast. The human cost was staggering. Civilians caught between the warring factions saw their homes become battlegrounds, their children conscripted into armies they didn't understand, their resources stripped away to fuel ever larger forces of killing machines. Hatred for both brothers grew among the common people, even as survival forced them to choose sides. As the war entered its second decade, Mishra's dreams grew stronger. The visions of steel and oil weren't random. They had been watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The Brotherhood of Gix appeared gradually, carefully, priests who spoke of the beauty of mechanical perfection, their bodies already showing subtle signs of modification. They offered Mishra counsel, support, and most importantly, power. Slowly, methodically, they worked their way into his inner circle. Ashnod saw the danger immediately. Mishra's apprentice and closest confidant, she recognized corruption when she saw it. These weren't just machine worshippers, they were agents of something far more sinister. But Mishra, desperate for any advantage against his brother's growing forces, listened to their whispers. The Brotherhood eventually brought their prize before their true master, Gix, a Phyrexian praetor dispatched by Yawgmoth himself to prepare Dominaria for conquest. In the depths of some hidden stronghold, beyond the reach of sunlight or hope, Mishra was offered a choice. What exactly happened in that meeting remains one of Magic's greatest mysteries. Some say Mishra was killed and his skin worn by a Phyrexian infiltrator. Others believe he willingly submitted to completion, trading his humanity for the power to defeat his brother. The result, however, was the same. What emerged was no longer human. Ashnod watched in horror as her lord and lover transformed. The man she'd followed into war became something else, something that spoke with his voice but moved with mechanical precision. When she couldn't stand it anymore, she took desperate action, Releasing Taunos, Urza's captured apprentice, and warning him of the Phyrexian infiltration spreading through Mishra's forces. The war had become something far more dangerous than a family feud. It was now a prelude to invasion. Not everyone wanted this war. In the city of Turcia, far from the main battlefields, scholar Hercule founded something remarkable: the Third Path, a movement dedicated to ending the conflict through the rediscovery of magic itself. They opened their ivory towers to refugees from both sides, offering sanctuary to anyone who sought peace over conquest. Their message was simple but powerful. The war would consume everyone, victor and vanquished alike. The answer wasn't better machines, but a return to the magical arts that had been largely forgotten since the Thran Empire's fall. Hercule and her followers proved their point by actually accomplishing it. Magic worked. They could create wonders, defend their city, and offer alternatives to the mechanical horrors tearing the continent apart. For a brief moment, it seemed like there might be another way. Mishra couldn't tolerate the challenge to his vision. If magic was the answer, then he would be its master. If he couldn't claim Turcia's knowledge for himself, he would ensure no one could have it. The siege of Turcia was merciless. Mishra's forces surrounded the city, cutting off all supply lines and bombarding its defenses day and night. When the walls finally fell, his dragon engines poured through the streets like a mechanical plague. But Hercule's final act proved everything she'd been teaching. As her city burned around her, she cast a spell that simply erased 3 of Mishra's dragon engines from existence. Not destroyed, removed from reality entirely, as if they had never been built. The demonstration of magic's true potential echoed far beyond the city's destruction. Among those who escaped the burning ruins was Lauren, a scholar who had known both brothers in their youth. She carried with her an artifact she discovered in Tercia's vaults, an ancient Thran device called the Golgothian Sylex. She had no idea she held the key to ending the war, but someone else did. 30 years of war had transformed Terracer into a wasteland. Entire regions empty, their populations dead or fleeing. The brothers' mechanical armies clashed across landscapes stripped bare of resources, feeding on the corpse of a dying continent. The end began on Argoth, a lush island paradise that held the final prize both brothers needed: enough resources to build the ultimate army and claim total victory. They descended on it like locusts, their war machines stripping away forests that had grown for millennia, mining operations scarring the landscape, foundries belching smoke into pristine skies. The island, however, fought back. Titiana, the powerful Marrow sorcerer who served as Argoth's guardian, rallied every living thing to resist the invasion. Trees became soldiers, beasts became weapons, the very land itself rose up against the mechanical plague consuming it. But 30 years of war had made both brothers experts in destruction. Argoth's defenses crumbled like paper, as everything else did in their path. As the final battle raged across the island's ravaged surface, Gix himself arrived with the full Phyrexian force. The Praetor's plan was finally ready. Use the chaos of the brothers' war to mask his own invasion, completing the conquest that Mishra's corruption had begun. Ashnod saw it all clearly now. The war, the corruption, Mishra's transformation, everything had been orchestrated to deliver Dominaria into Phyrexian hands. In desperation, she sought out Lauren and took the Golgothian Sylex by force, bringing it to the one person who might be able to use it. When Taunos delivered the artifact to Urza with Ashnod's instructions, his master was locked in single combat with the thing that had once been his brother. Mishra's final form was a horror of flesh and metal, more dragon engine than man, his voice a mechanical rasp that spoke of conquest and perfection. Looking into those mechanical eyes, Urza finally understood what his brother had become, and also what he had to do next. Following Ashnod's desperate instructions, Urza poured everything he was into the Golgothian Sylex. Not just his magic or his memories, but his very essence. His love for his brother, his guilt over Tocasia's death, his dreams of what they might have accomplished together. The artifact drank it all in, growing brighter and more unstable with each sacrifice. As Mishra's monstrous form bore down on him, trailing Phyrexian corruption like a disease, Urza made his final choice. He activated the Sylex. The explosion rewrote reality. A pillar of white light erupted from Argoth, visible from across the continent. Mishra, Titiana, their armies, even Gix's Phyrexian forces, all were consumed in an instant of absolute annihilation. But the blast didn't stop with the island. The unleashed energies altered Dominaria's very orbit, shifting the planet's relationship with its sun and triggering an ice age that would last for centuries. It created the first temporal rifts in reality, severed Dominaria's connections to other planes, and formed what would become known as the Shard of the 12 Worlds, a prison of ice and isolation. In that moment of ultimate destruction, as everything he'd ever loved was consumed by his own weapon, Urza's Planeswalker spark ignited. The Might Stone and Weak Stone, separated for so long, fused with his very eyes as he transcended mortality. He had become one of the most powerful beings in the multiverse. The price, however, cost him everything: his world, his brother, and his humanity. Urza returned to Dominaria to find a world locked in perpetual winter. Taunos emerged from his stasis coffin to discover forests turned to ice fields, cities buried under snow, and civilizations struggling to survive the calamity his master had unleashed. Their final conversation was brief. Urza asked Taunos to find Kayla and tell her to remember me as I tried to be, not as I was. Then the newly ascended Planeswalker vanished into the multiverse, beginning a journey that would consume millennia. The Brothers' War had ended, but its consequences would ripple through Magic's history forever. It created the first Planeswalker, introduced the Phyrexian threat to Dominaria, and established the themes of sacrifice and corruption that defined the game's storyline. Decades later, Urza would dedicate his immortal existence to fighting the Phyrexians who had corrupted his brother. His war against them would span multiple planes, create the legacy artifacts, and ultimately culminate in the Phyrexian invasion that nearly destroyed the multiverse. Every victory and defeat could be traced back to that moment when two brothers reached for the same stone. Their story is Magic's foundational tragedy, a reminder that the greatest evils often spring from the greatest goods corrupted. Urza and Mishra's love was so strong it survived separation, rivalry, and even hatred. What it couldn't survive was what they became in their desperate quest for power. The Power Stone had finally been made whole again, fused into the eyes of a grieving Planeswalker. It had just taken the destruction of a world to accomplish it. In the end, both brothers got exactly what they thought they wanted. Mishra achieved perfect unity with the machines he worshipped. Urza gained power beyond mortal comprehension, but the cost was everything they'd once shared: their friendship, their mentor, their world, and ultimately, their souls. This was the complete tragedy of the Brothers' War, the conflict that shattered a world and forged Magic's most important Planeswalker. Their story shows us that even the purest love can become the most destructive force when twisted by ambition and pride. If this deep dive into Magic's foundational story resonated with you, smash that like button and subscribe for more complete lore breakdowns. Share this with any Magic fans who love the deeper stories behind the cards. What moment from their fall hit you the hardest? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll dive in again soon.